at the important words. And what important words did you come up with? Individuality and conformity. Those are going to be important words. I heard somebody say write and synthesize. Those are important words. Okay. I heard a lot of important words. Did you come up with anything else? That's it. Whoa, we covered it. All right. So what do you think are the two most important aspects of the introduction? Okay. Betterment of individuals, betterment of society. Yeah, and so which one leads to betterment of individuals according to what our introductory expression is? The betterment of that individual, all right? And which one leads to the betterment of society? Conformity? I think my alarm is going off. Tell me. I better hurry up, okay? So here's what you guys need to think about with that. I have a creative writing class, and every year we go down and we go to elementary school. And I warn them before we get there that those elementary school students are all going to be walking on one side of the hall. They always walk to the right. And sometimes they put their finger over their mouth and they walk. That is conformity, isn't it? Okay? But it's for the betterment of their school society. It's quiet, so people can do their work, read in the library, whatever. The halls are peaceful. So, conformity, yes, versus individuality. All right, so paraphrasing the introduction, what'd you come up with?
Schools try to make people conform, but still be.
Exactly, okay? So schools say, okay, let's have an art class, and let's create our own individual expressions, all right? Or let's write a paper, come up with your own thesis, choose your own research topic. That's all individuality. But the art project or the paper has to meet certain guidelines, and that's conformity, yes? So examine the portion of the cover page that explains the task. Identify explicit and implicit tasks. So what's explicit? What is it asking you to do directly? What do you know you have to do?
Read the sources.
You've got to refer to sources. How many? At least 3. I like 4. 1 to grow on. I like 4. Okay? So refer to at least 3 to 4. Now, when I say you're referencing them, if you reference them directly, what punctuation mark? Quotations, okay? And when you use those quotations, it's very easy for them to see that you reference them. And when you use those quotations, you must have a citation right after those quotation marks. Yes? One of those. Does it matter which one you do? Does it matter if you say source A or Gatto?
No.
You'll get great credit for either one, but you have to say one or the other. And you have to have at least 3 different ones, but I say 4. Okay? So what if you indirectly reference, and you've paraphrased completely, you've put it into your own words, but it's still their idea. Do you have to give credit?
Yes.
Yes, you do, which means you have to use that citation again. Okay? That is explicit. You've got to choose an issue. That's what you're going to start with. So in your thesis, you're going to have this issue, yes? And you're going to work through it. All right, so that's explicit. What's implied? What's the implicit task? What issues must be considered based on the topic, not directly stated?
You have to make an argument.
You do have to make an argument, and you have to consider, from your point of view, what is most worthwhile. I mean, will the betterment of the individual lead to the betterment of society? Or will the betterment of society lead to the betterment of the individual? There are a lot of implicit underlying areas where you can choose your path. Yes? Okay, so what we need to do now is to look at the questions on the next page. And we're going to do this pretty quickly. Okay? These are discussion questions. So, we're going to look at these together. Take notes. okay, as we look at these, and I want you to jump in here. So, how do schools address conformity? I already gave you a sample. Walk down the hall, everybody walk to the right. It's the same thing we do on the road, too, yes? Stay to the right when we drive. That way we don't run into each other. It's important. Okay? So, what are some aspects of education in which conformity is expected? Give me one.
Math.
What?
Math.
Math. Oh, yes. You have to follow the rules. Math. You won't get the right answer. What else?
Dress code.
Oh, dress code.
Strict schedule.
Strict schedule. You got to follow the schedule. Don't be late. Get in trouble for that. Yes, sir?
Lectures,
Lectures.
notice that, like, not being able to talk during the lecture, like, you have to listen to the teacher the whole time.
Be silent. Give the teacher your respect. Yeah? Yes, sir.
Cell phone usage.
No leeway on that. Conformity, don't do it. Unless the teacher says research this, use this, yes? What else? What about science? Any variance in those lab rules? Lab procedures? You have to follow them?
Yes.
Yes? So, procedural things. Lunch, you have to pay for it? Well, probably. Or you gotta have a waiver, yes? Explicit rules. So, what issues must be considered when discussing conformity in school? Identify the pros and cons. What are the pros and cons of having conformity in school? Do you need it?
Yes.
Well, what if you didn't have to follow the lab rules? What could happen?
The lab could explode.
Boom! Yes, that's a problem, okay? That's a problem. What else?
Creates order.
Creates order, yeah, definitely creates order.
Class.
That's a pro, creates order, huh?
Skipping class.
Skipping class, that's a con, right? That's gonna hurt your education if you skip class. Give me some other pros and cons of conformity.
We can actually listen to our teacher.
You can hear your teacher, because it's irritating when you're trying to listen and people are talking, yes? Because you feel like, I want to hear this. I might need to know this. Okay? All right, so how do schools support individuality? Does your school encourage you to be individual in any way? Do most schools, not just your school, but any school? Do you have art classes?
Yeah.
I mean, that's individuality, isn't it? When you're assigned a writing topic, when your teacher says, I want you to write something, and you say, what? And she says, write about your experience. Is that individuality? Probably. In what other ways do they support individuality?
Dress the face.
Dress up days. If you don't wear uniforms, you do have to conform to the dress code, but you don't all have to wear purple shirts, right? So you've got some individual expression there, yes? Okay. Now, one thing that I want you to think about, and I don't think you were really thinking this when we looked on the first page, it's synonyms for the two important words. When you're talking about individuality and conformity in your essay, don't you think that's going to get redundant? Individuality, conformity, individuality, conformity. You're going to need some synonyms for individuality and conformity, aren't you? And that's true with any essay where you're looking at the same concepts over and over again. You're going to need some synonyms for them so you don't have to just keep saying the same thing. So individuality might be personal expression, yes? What about conformity? What would be some synonyms for that? Submit to the rules, rule followers. What did you say?
Normal.
Normal, the norm, which is conformity, okay? All right, so what issues must be considered when discussing individuality in school? You can think about that. I mean, you can't go too far out. If you have we have a sculpture class at our school. Okay, if you have a sculpture class and you say, I want to do a huge statue. Teacher said, we're gonna sculpt something, I'm gonna let you choose. I wanna do a statue of the principal to put on the front hall. Okay, well, if the principal is, you know, not a dwarf, that's gonna be a problem, because you're gonna need all all the materials, yes? So that's an issue. So individuality, what happens when you have individuality? How far do your rights extend as an individual? I mean,
Until we hit the laws.
until you hit laws or until you start infringing upon the rights of others, yes? That matters too. All right, so as a student, what are the largest issues at stake within this topic? As a parent, as a teacher, administrator, identify and discuss opposing points of view. All right, so what I want you to do now, we're gonna look at Source A aloud, and we're gonna complete the Source A evaluation guide together as a whole group. Then I've got you split up into 6 groups, okay? And you're gonna circulate around the room and complete each guide within the group. So you'll look at the others on your own. So let's look at this one, Source A. You see where it came from. Came from Harper's Magazine, okay? Which is a popular magazine. It's just on page 7 there, front page, it says 7. It says 6 and 7. I don't know what that's about. Okay, but anyway, it came from Harper's Magazine, September 2003. And this was an article that was written by a former high school teacher. And this will get your attention. It got my attention, okay? Do we really need school? I don't need education, just for schooling. 6 classes a day, 5 days a week, 9 months a year for 12 years. Is this deadly routine really necessary? And if so, for what? Don't hide behind reading, writing, and arithmetic as a rationale, because 2 million happy homeschoolers have surely put that banal justification to rest. Even if they hadn't, a considerable number of well-known Americans never went through the 12-year ringer our kids currently go through, and they turned out all right. George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Abe Lincoln. Someone taught them, to be sure, but they were not products of a school system. And not one of them was ever graduated from a secondary school. We have been taught, that is schooled in this country, to think of success as synonymous with, or at least dependent upon, schooling. But historically, that isn't true in either an intellectual or a financial sense. And plenty of people throughout the world today find a way to educate themselves without resorting to a system of compulsory secondary schools that all too often resemble prisons. Why then do Americans confuse education with just such a system? Wow, that is powerful from a former teacher. So we're going to look at the type of source. What is the type of source? Harper's Magazine, 2003. That's a print, popular magazine for women. That's what it is. That's your type of source, okay? If you look at the next page, you'll see what I have up here, and I'm going to have this taped up. So you can write it down on your sheet, but you'll see them as you come around with your group, okay? The next thing it asks you is to identify the audience. I told you. Identify the direct argument in the text, image, or data. And what's her direct argument? Is school necessary? You can get an education without that schedule, without formal school. That's her direct argument. What's her implicit argument? What's implied? That plenty of people have gotten an education without it, so why can't kids today? She says plenty of people have gotten one, but she doesn't really say why can't kids today for everything. Identify the goal of the document. I mean, this one's pretty explicit. What's her goal?
Shut down schools.
Yeah, to let people get an education the way they want to. And examples. Identify an example that suggests purpose. You know, if you were going to take a quote out of this, I'd say look for places where it's phrased perfectly and you didn't think you could phrase it any better than that. And you don't have to use whole long sentences. You can just take little snippets of conversation and put them in there. That's enough. Then your type of bias. Identify the type of bias present in the source. Now, I noticed that she, because I am a high school teacher, that she was an ex-high school teacher. Maybe she didn't have good experience. Maybe she didn't like all that conformity. Now, this source plays directly into what's going on with you, right? With what's going on with this question, conformity and individuality. Exactly. Okay? So, Here are your groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You gotta look at me. 6. Chick-fil-A cup. It's probably not to everybody's name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 is gonna be 1 short, okay? So all of my 1s are gonna go to the next source, because we're gonna look at all of these sources, okay? So all of my 1s are gonna go to source B. I put up source A too, because I was being goofy. But my 2s are gonna go to C. So are we getting this? 1, if you're a 1, you're going to B. If you're a 2, you're going to C. If you're a 3, you're going to D. Do I need to keep going? If you're an E, where are you going to? 4. You're not an E, you are a 4. You're going to E. You guys, you got the gist of this. Are we good? All right, so I'll kind of tell you where things are now, and you're going to be moving around. Okay? All right.